the fundamental disconnect, isn't it? You go back to this paper from, what, 1983.
Oh, yeah.
And it feels like she's talking about the interface on my phone today. But she's describing these old industrial control rooms. And she lays out this paradox that just, it haunts me.
It's the classic aim problem.
Right. The classic aim of automation is pretty simple logic. Human beings are unreliable. We get tired. We get distracted. We have bad days.
We're the weak link in the chain.
We are the weak link. So the engineer says, okay, let's automate the process. Let's pull the human out of the loop and make it safer.
Which sounds perfectly rational. I mean, eliminate the error, you eliminate the risk.
It sounds rational. But this is the part that really makes you stop and just stare at a wall. She says by automating all the easy routine stuff, you haven't actually eliminated the human. You've changed their job description.
And made them more critical.
So much more critical.
Yeah.
That's the irony. Because now the human is only needed for that 1% of the time when the machine has a catastrophic failure.
Exactly. And that 1% is usually the most complex, high-pressure, just terrifying scenario you can imagine. So you've taken a person, given them nothing to do for hours, maybe days, and then you demand they become a genius in a split second.
It's a setup. We are literally setting ourselves up to fail. And today, I really want to wrestle with that setup. Because when you look at all the research we've got from that 83 paper to vigilance studies from the 50s, all the way to this new human development report, it paints a picture of a species that is slowly kind of forgetting how to function.
We're asking a really heavy question here.
Yeah.
Are we trading competence for convenience? And in doing that, are we sort of sleepwalking into a world where we lose the ability to choose our own lives?
It's the agency question. But before we get too philosophical, let's stick to the practical trap she describes. You called this the GPS trap when we were looking at the notes.
Yeah. I think it's the easiest way to visualize what she saw coming. Just think about how you navigate a city today versus, say, 20 years ago.
20 years ago, I had a mental map. I knew the landmarks. Turn left at the weird statue. You know, if you hit the river, you've gone too far.
Okay.
That kind of thing.
You had what we call a literacy of the landscape. You were actually engaging with the environment. If you took a wrong turn, you'd figure it out. You were active.
And now,
you just follow the blue line.
Exclusively. If the blue line says turn, I turn. I don't even look at the street name half the time.
And it's great. It's seamless. It's efficient. But, and here's the paradox, what happens if your battery dies or the GPS loses signal?
I am stranded.
You aren't just inconvenienced. You're helpless. You don't know where north is. You don't know if the highway is east or west.
Yeah.
Because you've offloaded that cognitive work to the machine, your own. Your internal map is atrophied.
Gone.
You've traded competence for convenience. You're illiterate to your own surroundings.
And this creates a system that's just inherently fragile. It's not just that we forget the map. It's that we physically can't do what the machine asks us to do when it fails. And this brings us to the vigilance problem. I really want to dig into this Mackworth study from the 1950s because the findings are just terrifying.
It is a bit scary. So this researcher, N.H. Mackworth, was looking at radar operators, factory monitors. He wanted to know, how long can a human being stare at a screen where nothing is happening, just waiting for a signal before they start missing things?
And these are motivated people, right? This isn't some bored teenager scrolling TikTok.
Highly motivated. Their jobs, sometimes lives, depended on it. And what he found was a hard biological wall.
Which was?
30 minutes.
30 minutes. That's it.
That's it. After about 30 minutes of monitoring a static situation, human attention it essentially collapses. It's not laziness, it's neurology. The brain requires stimulus to stay alert. If you put a human in a control room, ask them to put their hands in their pockets and watch a system work perfectly, their brain physically starts to shut down.
It goes into a fog.
A complete fog. It's synaptic decay.
So we've designed entire industries, piloting, power plants, security, around a task that the human animal is biologically incapable of doing well.
Precisely. We ask them to monitor perfection, and then 3 hours later, an alarm goes off.
Yeah.
And we expect that person who is neurologically in a coma to instantly snap into high alert problem-solving mode.
Which brings us to the second part of the deterioration. Let's say they do snap out of it. They wake up, the alarm is blaring, there's this idea of manual control skills, and they atrophy like a muscle. If you don't flex it, it just withers.
This is the whole use it or lose it principle, but for complex machinery. There used to be this ritual in old industrial plants. Operators would come in like 20 minutes before their shift unpaid, usually.
Just to hang out.
To get the feel, they'd walk the floor, they'd listen to the hum of the turbines, they'd look at the vibration on the gauges. They were building a mental model, loading all this data into their short-term memory.
They were syncing their brain with the machine's rhythm.
Yes. They had context. They knew the beast. Now, imagine the automated version. You walk in cold. The computer handles everything. You don't touch the controls. You don't even hear the hum because you're behind soundproof glass.
So you have zero working storage of what's actually happening.
Exactly. Then, boom, the automatic system fails. You have to take over. But you have no feel for it.
None.
And this leads to what engineers call oscillation.
Oscillation. Okay, explain that to me like I'm 5.
All right. Think about an old shower where the water temperature is super tricky.
Oh, I hate those showers. The ones that are either ice or lava.
Exactly those. You turn it on and it's freezing. So what do?
I crank the handle to hot.
Right. But there's a lag. So you wait, nothing happens, you crank it even more. Suddenly it's scalding hot. So you panic and crank it all the way back to cold.
And then I'm freezing again. Of course.
That is oscillation. You are overcorrecting because you don't have the subtle touch, the gain and timing to manage the system. In a shower, it's annoying. In a nuclear plant or an aircraft, it's fatal. The warning is that when a human jumps into a process they haven't been manually controlling, their first instinct is almost always to overcorrect.
Which makes the crash worse.
So much worse.
Yeah.
You're trying to save the system, but because you don't speak its language anymore, because you haven't been talking to it, your attempt to save it is what actually destroys it.
And the economic irony under all this is just brutal. I know you spotted this in the notes.
Oh, absolutely. It's the catch-22.
It is. We actively de-skill these jobs. We tell the worker, hey, you're just a monitor now. The machine does the actual work. But then the worker demands really high pay, and management says, why? You're just sitting there watching a screen.
But the worker is right. They're effectively saying, you aren't paying me for the 99% of the time I'm drinking coffee. You're paying me for the 1% of the time the red lights start flashing, and I have to stop this place from exploding.
But the tragedy is that the company is paying for a skill, that emergency response skill, that the job itself is actively destroying every single day.
The better the automation, the less practice the human gets. The less practice they get, the more dangerous they become when they finally have to take over.
Okay, so that's industrial pipes and valves. That feels like a very mechanical problem. But as we moved through the source material, specifically looking at the Pew Research on algorithms and this human development report, it became so obvious that this isn't just about factories anymore. This is happening inside our minds.
It's the exact same logic. We just moved from machine minding to algorithm minding.
Let's unpack that. The sources use this term, the black box society. We aren't watching a steam valve anymore. We're watching a decision tree that we can't see.
It's the invisible hand all over again, but digital. To understand why this is happening, we have to look at why we rely on algorithms in the first place. One of the experts in the research calls algorithms heuristics.
Heuristics, that's just a fancy word for shortcuts, right?
Exactly, mental shortcuts.
Mm.
And we need them because modern life is, and I love this image, it's like trying to drink from a fire hydrant.
A fire hydrant of information.
Think about your day. Every tweet, every news story, every product on Amazon, every potential date in your city. If you had to manually process and evaluate every single one of those options,
I'd be paralyzed. I would never leave the house.
you'd drown. You would physically drown in the noise.
Yeah.
So the algorithm steps in, it acts as a filter, it puts a cup under the fire hydrant, fills it up and hands it to you and says, here, this is what you want.
And mostly we say thank you.
We love it. It's
Mhm.
efficient. It saves us from the headache of too much choice. And here is the digital version of that same paradox.
Yeah.
What is the cost of that efficiency?
The sources mention serendipity.
Right. The cost is the fire hydrant spray of reality that you didn't ask for, but maybe you needed to see.
So this is the filter bubble idea, but it feels deeper than just politics.
It is deeper. It's a quarantine. We are being quarantined into ideological zones, consumer zones, even aesthetic zones. If the algorithm knows I like sci-fi movies and liberal politics, it will never, ever show me a Western or conservative argument. Why would it? That would be inefficient.
It lowers the engagement score.
Correct. But what that means is I lose the ability to understand the person living in the parallel reality next door. I lose that parallel reality entirely. I start to think my little cup of water is the whole ocean.
And it creates a world where we don't even know what we're missing. But there's something even more unsettling in the research. It's the unverified nature of these models. We aren't just talking about Netflix recommendations anymore. We're talking about life-altering decisions.
We're talking about predictive sentencing in courts. We're talking about who gets a loan, who gets hired for a job.
And the sources point out that these models are often black boxes.
That's the Kafkaesque nightmare they mentioned in the text, because the computer says so.
Walk us through that nightmare.
Okay, so imagine you apply for a mortgage. In the old days, a banker sits across from you. He says, look, your debt-to-income ratio is a little high. You can argue with them. You can say, yeah, but I just got a raise, or that debt is medical. There is a human dialogue.
A negotiation, there's an appeal process, you can plead your case.
Now, the output is just a score, a 580. Why is it 580? Maybe the model correlated your zip code with high default rates. Maybe it noticed you buy cheap tires, and statistically, people who buy cheap tires are riskier borrowers.
Does the banker even know that's the reason?
No. That's the scary part. The banker doesn't know. The programmer might not even know, because the machine learning model found that correlation all on its own. It's opaque. You're being judged by an invisible logic that you cannot appeal and that no human can fully explain.
That completely changes the power dynamic. In that system, we aren't really the customers, are we? That was the chilling realization I had reading this. We're just the input.
We are the raw material. The system isn't optimized to make us happy. It's optimized to predict us, to hyperstalk us.
Hyperstalking. It sounds so paranoid until you look at how much data they're collecting.
It's surveillance capitalism. Our behavior is mined to refine the model. And the better the model gets at predicting you, the less agency you actually have. You think you're choosing, but you're just reacting to stimuli that were perfectly designed to trigger you.
And this brings us to the core philosophical issue. This human development report is titled A Matter of Choice, but it asks a really heavy question. What even is agency in the age of AI?
It's the question of the century.
Mm-hmm.
And they define agency in a very specific way that I think is important for everyone to hear. Agency is not just having options.
Right. It's not just picking between 50 kinds of cereal at the store.
Exactly. Think of it like a restaurant. If I give you a menu with 50 options, but I wrote the menu, and I decided what ingredients were available, do you really have agency? No. You have the illusion of choice. You're selecting from a pre-approved list.
So what is real agency?
Real agency, according to the report, is the ability to determine for yourself what it means to live a good life. It's the ability to set the goal, not just pick the path.
That's a high bar.
It is. And AI is threatening that because it is now penetrating the levers of power. We're seeing it in public administration and law enforcement. If the government uses an algorithm to decide where to deploy police or which neighborhood gets development funds, they are outsourcing moral judgment to a statistical model.
And the statistical model is just looking at past data.
Which means it just reinforces past biases. It becomes a feedback loop that tightens the noose.
There was an analogy from Barrington Thurston in the source pile that I just can't get out of my head. He compared our obsession with tech to traffic.
The highway analogy? It's brilliant.
He said we treat technology like adding lanes to a highway to fix congestion. We think, oh, too much data, we need faster processors, too much traffic, add another lane. But what happens when you add a lane to a highway?
Induced demand.
Explain that.
It's a well-known phenomenon in urban planning. If you widen the highway to fix traffic, people see the open road and say, hey, driving is easy now, so more people start driving. And within a year, the traffic is just as bad. But now the road is even wider and harder to cross.
You haven't solved the problem, you've just increased the volume.
So Thurston asks the real question. Why don't we ever ask if we should be building a world where we need to drive less?
That's the agency question. We are trying to build faster AI to manage this flood of information instead of asking, why have we built a world that floods us with information we don't even need? Why are we optimizing for speed?
It feels like we're sleepwalking.
That's the term the philosophers use, somnambulism, sleepwalking. We are sleepwalking into a high-speed, high-data existence without ever stopping to ask if this is the life we actually want. We are optimizing for efficiency, for connection, but we aren't optimizing for meaning.
Or for autonomy.
And we're losing the ability to want things that aren't suggested to us. That's the real fear I have. If I only ever want what the recommendation engine suggests, do I really have a personality? Or am I just a reflection of the data set?
You're becoming a predictable output, and that connects all the way back to the very beginning, to the factory floor. When you strip away the struggle to read a map, the struggle to find a new band without a playlist, the struggle to control a machine manually, you strip away competence.
And when you strip away competence,
you lose the confidence to define your own reality. You become a passenger in your own life.
A passenger.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And passengers don't steer. They don't decide the destination. They just watch the scenery go by.
So let's bring this full circle. We started with the irony of the factory floor that the most automated systems require the most skilled humans, yet give them no way to practice that skill. And now we're seeing that same irony applied to, well, to our souls, really. The more seamless our life becomes, the more we need strong human agency to resist the algorithm, yet the less practice we get in exercising that agency.
It's a paradox of value. We value the convenience. We love the convenience. But we don't realize that the price of convenience is often competence.
So what do we do? I mean, we can't smash the machines. We aren't Luddites.
No, and the reports aren't suggesting we go back to the Stone Age. But they are suggesting we need to value friction a little bit more.
Friction.
The friction of doing it yourself. It's about refusal, the refusal to just accept the blue line. It's about occasionally turning off the GPS and getting lost just to prove to yourself that you can still find your way back. It's about picking a movie the algorithm didn't recommend just to see what happens.
Because if you don't use it...
You lose it.
Yeah.
And once that agency is gone, it is very, very hard to get back.
There's a final thought here that I want to leave with. It's a bit of a provocation. We've spent this whole time talking about systems, industrial systems, digital systems, but ultimately, this is about what happens when the lights go out.
Right. The failure state.
We were warned 40 years ago. If you don't let the operator practice, they fail when the emergency comes.
So the question for everyone listening is simple, but it's haunting. We rely on these invisible hands, these algorithms, these GPS dots to guide every single step of our day. We trust them to tell us where to go, what to buy, who to date.
Yeah.
But imagine if they just stopped. Imagine the screen goes black, the blue line disappears, the recommendation engine goes silent.
Just you and the silence.
Would you still know where you are? Or have you forgotten how to read the stars?